Allison should know.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that
massive computer network.
The one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
25 years before, people were not even aware of what internet was. But now, we cannot imagine our life even a single day without having internet. So what will be that next generation game changer? There are 3 evolutionary advancements that are going to dominate this generation and next generation. To start with, mobile and web application development. We are already in the mobile first era, so more or less entire application development paradigm has shifted from desktop to web and mobile application. And the next being automation. We know that all the repetitive, mundane and manual tasks are getting automated across the domain. So it's anticipated that automation threatens approximately 800 million jobs. But not to worry, technology could still save us. That's what the report says. And the most prominent and the important thing, machine learning and deep learning. Artificial intelligence is gonna create 58 million new jobs by 2022. Again, machine learning in the workplace are expected to create 133 million new roles. But here is a word of caution for the happy minds that 75 million jobs will be displaced by 2022 to pave way for machine learning and deep learning. So how do we upskill ourselves to manage in all these 3 domains? Is there anything in common between each of them? Yes, the answer is Python. Python is the most in-demand and required tool across each of these domains so that we can start our journey in any of them. Thus, here comes under the hood of Python, a complete guide for all. This is for someone who would want to master Python programming end to end. Let me now take you through the curriculum of this guide. To start with, let us first understand how Python works under the hood. Does our Python code gets compiled or interpreted? What are the steps taken by a Python code to reach the underlying machine since we type the code? Lexical analyzer, parser and compiler. What do they really do in Python? How is the execution flow handled by Python? After getting introduced to Python workflow, we are going to proceed ahead and understand the behavior of Python variables. Some of the points that are seen in this section involves, do we really need to initialize a data type explicitly in Python? What's that unique variable manipulation technique that exists in Python when compared to other programming languages? And the most important topic of why Python is termed as dynamically typed language. After which we will proceed ahead and understand data objects in Python. We are going to start with numbers in Python. We will first understand the nature and behavior of integers in Python, followed by which we will also understand what is the behavior of floating point numbers in Python, and then we are going to look at a very important and unique mechanism that exists in Python, which is nothing but floating point arithmetics. And what are the surprising floating point arithmetics and what are the ways to circumvent them? We are going to have a detailed look at it. Soon after this, we are going to jump into another data object in Python, which is known as text. Complete life cycle of strings in Python will be understood by us, following to which we are also going to delve into functions and operations that are applicable on Python strings. And then comes statements and operators in Python. We are going to understand the complete implementation details of statements and operators that exist in Python, after which we are also going to have a look at chaining of comparison operators. Once we cover all the details of various operators and statements that are present in Python, we are going to get into a very important section in our curriculum, which is nothing but data structures in Python. We shall start by covering list as a data structure and how is it going to store various data objects in Python. And then comes a key concept called mutable and immutable objects. So we are going to understand completely what do we mean by a mutable data object and an immutable data object, whether list is a mutable or immutable data structure. Then we are going to have a look at the implementation of different operations and functions that are supported on a list data structure. And then we move ahead to understand the concepts like shallow copy and deep copy. Not only understanding them individually, but we also see what are the differences between them and how are they implemented in Python. This is continued with more data structures in Python, where we are going to understand tuples, dictionaries and sets, along with the understandability of whether they are mutable or immutable. Following to which we will also see the different operations and functions that are supported on each of them. Next we are going to have a look at loop and comprehension. For loop is very interesting in Python because they directly apply on data structures. So whatever the data structures we discussed till now can be used as input for our for loops. So we are going to see how for loop behaves, what is the for loop construct, and how can we use it in our day in day out programming. Then we will also understand the implementation of while loop and its functionalities. Here comes Pythonic way of looping over using list comprehension and dictionary comprehension, where in a single instruction we will see output expression, a variable to iterate, input sequence and an optional predicate. We are going to understand that completely and implement using dictionary comprehension as well as list comprehension. Now comes another useful topic in Python, which is called as functions. We are going to start by understanding what are user-defined functions, how do we define it, and how do we consume it. So there are multiple ways in which we can pass arguments to these functions. So positional arguments, keyword arguments, default and variable length arguments. And what are variable scopes in functions for various data types and data structures. Creating and using Lambda functions, complete understanding of nested functions and what first class objects are. Under the functions, next we will see how do we implement decorators and what are the utilities of using decorators in programming. Next we will have a detailed look at the available built-in functions in Python, starting from map function, reduce function, filter function, enumerate, zip function and any function. Once we cover functions in Python, then we are going to get into another concept called exception handling. We always know software programs cannot be 100% error-free. Any event during the execution of a program, if it disrupts the normal flow, then we call it as exception. But only unhandled exception terminates the program. So we have in Python something known as exception handling again, which are of multiple varieties. Starting from a simple try except block, try except and no exception block, try except clause with multiple exceptions, try except and finally block, argument of one or more exceptions, and flexibility for the end user to raise his or her own exception. And in the next section we are going to have a look at two new concepts known as iterators and generators. We will also see how they make life of a programmer easier. And then comes an advanced data structuring concept in Python known as collections. Under its umbrella we are going to cover default dictionary, order dictionary, name tuple, dequeue and counters as the advanced data structures in Python. Then comes the most important concept for a developer when he is developing a program, which is known as object-oriented programming. In this area of object-oriented programming, we are going to cover the following topics. To start with, what are classes? What are objects? What are attributes? Methods? Constructors? Self-operator? Behavior of encapsulation? Property object to make the encapsulation smoother? And the most important characteristic of object-oriented programming, which is inheritance, super function and method resolution order to support it, polymorphism, and finally garbage collection. We will have the thorough knowledge and complete implementation understanding of each of them. While we are acquiring the knowledge on Python, we are also going ahead in application and game development. To start with, we are going to develop GPA calculator and managing and fetching tweet details, creating an application for Facebook friend list maker, making a job opportunity checker, game known as reveal the secret, and another game termed as tic-tac-toe, and finally a project on object-oriented programming known as design and development of television. This way we are going to get our hands dirty in application and game development using various concepts that we have acquainted during our curriculum. Throughout our course, we will be learning all these topics in two ways. One is conceptualization, where we are going to understand each of the discussed topics in detail and in depth. And also, every topic will be covered up with one or more coding lectures. These coding lectures are nothing but the implementation of every topic that we have spoken about. also be coding along with me. This way the curriculum will not be theoretical, instead it will be more interactive and coding oriented. Once you are done with this course, you will be ready as a Python professional to onboard a job. If you are still confused whether to go with this course or not, do not worry. This course comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. But I'm so sure you will fall in love with this course. So wait for what? Enroll yourself today and I'll see you inside the course.